everyone. I'm Kailey Ruskowski, and welcome back to the Anything But Bland podcast. On this podcast, we're talking about business, community, and everything in between. This is a podcast of Bland and Associates, and I've got my co-host with me today.
Hi guys, I'm Ashley Postaway, and today we're going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And with us, we have DeVon Billups. Hi, DeVon.
Welcome.
Hello. What's up, guys?
How are you?
Good. How's it going?
Good. Well, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us about you.
Yeah. So, like Ashley said, my name's DeVon Billups. I am a tax supervisor. I am the head of the DEI committee, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And yeah, just excited to be here. Been with Bland for about 11 years now.
Wow.
So,
I just hit my 8 years yesterday.
Yeah. So when you get your 10, you get a nice little surprise. Ooh. So make sure you make it there.
No pressure. So that's more than half your lifetime, right? Has been at Bland? I'm trying to think how old you are.
No.
Not quite.
I'm 28 right now. So,
okay.
but more than half of my actual, the part that you're actually, living and having fun has been involved with Bland. So.
Yes, well, we're super excited to have DeVon on today. DeVon and I feel like, are kind of kindred spirits because we took a very similar career path.
Yeah.
At Bland, we've both been with the firm since we were probably the acceptable age to be in a professional environment, and had our roots in admin, and then have just ultimately ended up in different departments, but
Yep. No, I've been called the next generation of Kailey.
No, oh my God.
So hopefully we can get another Kailey and DeVon, and Kailey and I can judge them harshly.
Yes. The bar's very high.
Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. Well, okay. Well, as we said, we're discussing DEI today, and we are trying to be very active in DEI at Bland. Mm-hmm. DeVon really played a key role in helping us start this initiative at the firm. So can you tell us how DEI was committed, or the committee was created? Yeah,
so the initiative was originally created in response to the George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate, all of those movements that had happened a couple of years ago. And so, we as a firm and as a, larger group decided that, this is something that we need to be active about. Mm-hmm. It's always been on people's minds and, been like a disorganized effort. But
I think the problem is like, where do we start? What do we do? How do we do it? When do we do it? And then it's just like a lot of burden that someone needs to do it. And
it was similar. It was similar to Bland Cares. People were doing charity and things like that, and Bland decided to make it an actual thing inside the firm. So then we got started, and basically the people who were on the committee are all volunteers. They decided to go above and beyond of what their normal job duties are to be a part of this. And so we've just kind of first been focused really hard on education and learning about ourselves as a firm, and what works for us, what doesn't work for us, and how do we market who we are better, how do we become more inclusive as a firm to people who don't look like us or who aren't from the same background as us. So that's really been what we've been focused on for the past 2 years.
Does this DEI for Bland have anything to do with code? Do they go one in one or?
Yes. Yeah. So Code is a greater Omaha. It's part of the Omaha Chamber. And so basically they, started their own kind of DEI initiative, and we kind of piggybacked on that and worked with them. They do a semi-annual seminar thing where basically they have a bunch of speakers from people who do like civil rights attorneys and people who are involved in that space, like marketers and things like that, to kind of educate us, so that we can then disseminate that education to staff and the rest of the firm.
Yeah. So there's the DEI committee, but then there's also subcommittees, because as you kind of alluded to, it's really flows through a lot of different aspects of the firm: hiring, internal events, marketing. Can you talk a little bit about like the different subcommittees of the DEI committee? Yeah.
So now, which we've kind of pivoted from years prior, so we no longer have like subcommittees. We have more focuses.
Oh, sure.
And so basically, when we were doing the subcommittees, letting people go off on their own, we found that it wasn't as effective as, just let us as a larger group just target a specific area and do it all together.
That makes sense.
So there's education, there's, marketing / recruiting, and, that education falls under the umbrella of the actual firm. And then there's, kind of just the extra stuff where it's, how do we get the firm involved in doing fun stuff and doing stuff in the community that's not necessarily educational, but it's also not related to marketing or recruiting. It's just being out there and doing our part. So that's where we are now, and happy where this the committee is going. It's definitely a great group of people.
Yeah, that's good. And that makes sense with what we saw in 2022. There were a lot of different opportunities for the rest of the firm to get involved with the DEI committee. So can you talk a little bit about some of the past events or things that the committee kind of led for us in 2022?
Yeah, so the biggest one that we had done was our diversity training, our annual diversity training. So the year prior, we had gone with a provider. You guys know him, Jeremy, and so he focuses on more so personalities and things like that. And so we love Jeremy and we love working with him. So we were like, hey, let's try to see if there's someone else out there that that we can bring into the fold, because like with the diversity, being more inclusive, obviously you can't go to the same people for different things.
Right,
you want to bring in other vendors, other people,
other perspectives.
Yeah, exactly. So we went with a young lady named Mynisha Spencer, and I'll say that because our HR director Megan and I were the ones who were meeting with her and feeling her out. She was the one who basically, with code, you take an assessment. And basically, your employees anonymously. Our employees anonymously, do a survey that says, how is your business doing with regards to, diversity, communication of things, stuff like that. So, she interpreted our results for us, gave us ideas, and me and Megan were like, she's really good. Let's see if what she's about. And so, I was blown away.
She was excellent.
When we were talking to her, she never brought up the fact that she, studied law. It was in a civil rights area. We were like, holy.
Wow. Yeah.
So working with her, it was great. Having her come out, everyone, loved her, and she was very thorough, very professional, made it interactive for the larger group.
I like how she kind of put the pressure on a little bit. She would just ask an open-ended question and see, people were a little bit tense at first, and she's like, this is a safe space, ask these questions, this is the only way we're going to learn. And then slowly you started seeing people raising their hands, like, I think this, and then, no, that's wrong, or I think this, and she's like, no, what you don't maybe think is diversity or whatever, it in fact is, like, whether it's into certain things or you never think of it that way.
Right.
Yeah, and one shout out to Bob Dick. He was one of the people brave enough to ask one of the tougher questions during that. But what
was the question?
I believe it was in relation to a court. Oh, it was in relation to Harvard's issue with
admitting based on
they were
ethnicity and things like that, and all the way up to the Supreme Court and some of that.
Yeah. And so one thing that people have to understand is this topic or this conversation isn't an easy one to have, but that's why you should have these types of conversations, because good things come out of it, and growth only comes from a position of lack of comfort.
Absolutely. Yeah. So her name was Mynisha Spencer, and we will include her information in the show notes for
Shout
today,
out to Mynisha,
because she is great. I think she encouraged a lot of us to follow her on Instagram after she was done, which I have, and the content she shares. I mean, every day she posts just like different instances from history of racial injustice and things like that. It's just very, very eye-opening and kind of good to have that in your feed every single day, because that is the thing I think with DEI and why Bland started this is it's not enough to just be against it but not do anything. Right. You have to be active, and so sometimes just having it in your face every day is just that good reminder of like, what am I doing today to be active in this?
Yeah.
With that, okay, why do we think it was important to have this committee? You kind of said that in the beginning a little bit, but is there something like really eye-opening that you thought it would be important for Bland to do this versus just being a part of code?
Yeah. So the biggest sell, for this was it creates, a competitive advantage for a business. So when you look at people's backgrounds and where they come from, that obviously has a fundamental impact on who they are today. And so that fundamental impact, those experiences, then, can benefit the business because you get, like you said, different perspectives looking at the same thing. So if you recruit from the same place, looking for the same person, you're going to have just a bunch of yes men in the room all agreeing on the same thing. But if you have multiple different perspectives, then you can start planning for alternatives that, if this doesn't go right, then you have this, or maybe we should pivot and do it like this because this other person might not fit in with where it is. And so it's a delicate balance, but yeah, it's definitely, about having a competitive advantage and bringing people in. And ultimately, kind of Kailey said it, I started it in high school. I started at Bland in high school. I had no ambitions to be an accountant.
That's so crazy.
I didn't have someone in my family who was an accountant or even, basically knew what an accountant did. So, it's not a leap to say that Bland fundamentally changed my life and changed the path that I, was on. And I wasn't a terrible kid, but, I didn't have many prospects of what I was going to be when I grew up.
Right.
So, it's not a far jump to say that Bland can potentially be life-changing for, we're partnered with OPS.
I was just going to ask about that. Is that a subcommittee or is that just part of the DEI that you do? Can you tell us a little bit about what we did with Burt?
Yeah. So OPS has fundamentally changed. I'm saying fundamentally a lot. I just realized that. It's a good word. It's a good word.
We're not just doing minimal change. It's fundamental.
Yeah.
Right. We can make it fun.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Putting the fun in fundamental, folks. But yeah, so OPS is fundamentally changing their operating, the way that they work. So now OPS, if you're going to a OPS high school, each high school has a kind of like a magnet school operating
What's a
system.
magnet school for those that don't know?
A magnet school is a school that has a specific
Concentration?
Concentration is probably the best word for it. So if you go to a magnet school, it's usually, STEM related math, science, engineering type deal. So basically it's kind of taking that model, but applying it to all the schools. So for instance, Burke specializes in, business, entrepreneurship, marketing. Northwest specializes in, public service like police, firefighters, fire safety, first aid type stuff. So we've targeted Burke. Luckily, they're right down the street from the office, so that's always good. But yeah, so basically they're starting this, and this is their first generation. This semester is their first generation of starting it. And so basically what happens is the freshmen, go and do kind of their general ed. They're not put into a group yet, but then after they've declared their what's called group, or career path, then they get put into a cohort, which is, the larger group. So then they're taking the same classes with the same people who are in their major, basically. And yeah, so then we're partnered with them to try to, dispel some myths about accounting, as well as to get involved and, kind of how Kailey and I, get in there and show them that this is a path that, it takes 4 years of college, but, there's a lot of careers out here that you take 4 years of college, you can't do anything with your degree. So then you have to go to get a master's, you have to go get you have to go to law school or something like that. So this is a good career path for someone who isn't really sure what they want to do. Maybe they just really like working with people or working with numbers, and they want the versatility of what the degree can offer them. So so that's what we're doing with Burke. So lots of good stuff.
I think it was really great.
Of the Burke?
Yeah, so you have to go in and interview with the students, kind of just ask them some questions and put some pressure on them. And I couldn't believe how great some of them were. Yeah. It was the beginning of the year too. So
that's great.
So I actually went to Burke they did a Shark Tank type deal for the freshmen.
Yes.
And so they had to set up a presentation, they had to make a product, pitch it, and pitch it to you. And they're nervous as all heck, but they're
I wish they would have done that when I was in school, because like you said, I don't have anybody in accounting or marketing or anything, in my family. It's you don't really see that. Even, I went to a Bellevue school or whatever, but we never had companies come in. They had, I think, a recruiting thing where, you know, and you're in high school, you're like, oh, you just, maybe you want to go get the free stuff, or maybe you're too shy to get the free stuff because you don't want to talk to them. Like, this actually puts some pressure on them to actually have the conversations and ask questions once you kind of, you know, break down the barrier of like them being shy or, you know.
And there were some actually really good products. Like there was one product called the Health Bot, where it's like a
Health Bot?
It's like a bot robot that you talk to, you know, about mental health, and they and you know it's basically like a pocket therapist is the idea that was pitched, and it uses AI to, you know, answer properly and stuff like
amazing.
that. And so these are, you know, 13, 14-year-old kids that are coming up with things like this, and, you know, with mental health being a, you know, paramount issue in our country and in our world, you know, just to have them have that insight of,
or even bringing up AI to be part of it. That was never a thought in my head in high school.
Well, and that goes back to DeVon's earlier point of it's critical to get in new young people with different backgrounds and different interests to help advance our firm.
For sure.
And overall, there is just a shortage of accounting people in the world right now, and there has been a lot of stigma or perception, and not perception, actual barrier to pursuing accounting. And so I think anything that we and others can do to help like break those barriers down or remove those obstacles and show that this is an actual career that you can pursue. And to DeVon's earlier point, and I always talk to people when they have like kids that are entering college, like, tell them to major in accounting. Oh my gosh. Remove the bias, because there is, outside of public accounting, there are literally a million different things you can do with an accounting degree. And so it's such a good foundation, such good knowledge to have wherever you end up.
Yeah, for sure. So. And if you want like a finance position, you know, it's easier to be an accountant and get a finance position than to be someone who's in finance and to get into an accounting position like a CFO or something like that.
Yeah. This has been so good. I don't want to sign off before we talk about the Multicultural Media
my baby.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So basically the Multicultural Media Club was a club that, you know, our DEI, you know, committee created. And so basically it was kind of a way to do more frequent things than, you know, trainings and community events, which, you know, are sporadic at best. So basically it is a club surrounding media from multiple cultures, aka multicultural. And so basically what we do is we meet monthly and we have lunch catered from, you know, multiple ethnic restaurants around the Omaha area, you know, to expose people to new restaurants or new flavors or new combinations. Like for example, pad thai is something that's both spicy and sweet, which is something that doesn't really, you know, go together in most people's minds, and, you know, just elevating people's flavor palettes a little bit at Bland's cost. Thank you, Bland. And so then we get together and we talk about a smaller piece of media. You know, we didn't want to do like a book club or a movie club because that's a lot of commitment for someone to do with a busy life with kids.
Or tax season.
So it's either, you know, a small article, you know, the common thing is a 5-minute, you know, 7-minute YouTube video. And so basically, you know, it's the video can be about really anything you want. You know, there's really nothing off the table. You know, it just talks about, you know, what you learn from it. You know, how do the things talked about in the video kind of link in with your personal life of, you know, one of the things that we talked about before the holiday break was, you know, holiday traditions around the globe. And so, and, you know, it's like, oh, if they do something like this, me and my family do something like this. And so it also gives you stuff to talk about with people who say that they're from a certain country or they speak a certain language. Then you have that kind of fundamental, there's that word again. There's the word again. It gives you that groundwork to have something to talk about with people, and, you know, and not come off as uneducated, because, you know, the worst thing is, you know, when you're trying to relate or connect with someone and you're completely missing the mark in the conversation. And so learning, and it helps you learn about your coworkers, you know, like a guy who works in our GovCon department, Matt Fowler. I didn't know that he was a black belt in Taekwondo and studied Taekwondo since a kid. And so I studied, you know, Kung Fu for a little bit. And so we, you know, we're comparing and so he knows, He knows how to count in Korean because, Taekwondo is a Korean martial art. So he knows how to count, and I know how to count in Mandarin.
This is cool.
Yeah, I am really impressed right now.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great group, and Kailey was had made her first appearance.
I attended my first.
Unfortunately, I missed it. I don't remember what I. What
you had to miss it too.
Yeah,
I think it was the tax team.
Oh yeah, the tax team lunch was at the same day, same time.
Yes.
So yeah, what was your experience?
Yeah, I loved it. To your point, I know these coworkers who were attending, but just in that hour learned so much more about them, and didn't realize like certain people's families really celebrated their heritage and where great grandparents or beyond had emigrated from and still kept up a lot of those traditions. And another thing that was kind of like a really neat commonality was I talked about Las Posadas, which was the Mexican celebration around the holidays, and it focused on there's core values that are kind of reflected upon each day, which was similar to Kwanzaa and the video that DeVon couldn't make it, but he had provided some materials. So it was just cool to that point of common ground and relating with people, even though you celebrate this or that. There's a lot of similar things that are rooted in holidays or tradition, and so it was really fun. It was a good conversation, and so I'm super excited to continue attending.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing that we've come to notice is that humanity is very connected, right? So like if you look at languages, for example, if you look at Chinese versus Japanese, and then Indian versus Thailand language, like the way it's written, they look very similar. And so you can kind of like with Pangea, where you can kind of put the pieces of the world together to make one big shape. You can kind of put humanity's history together. And one thing that I learned while researching Kwanzaa, because I personally don't celebrate it, I have family who celebrates it. But one thing I learned about with Kwanzaa is that, some of the places, like it's celebrated, heavily in Portugal, England, Canada. And so, while researching it, and these are places I didn't think, because Kwanzaa is a celebration of African-American, history. So one thing that I, found is that, there's a large, African descendant population in Portugal, because obviously the Portuguese were a large member of the slave trade, and so it was their ships. So obviously people stayed in Portugal. Canada is obviously where the freed slaves left to get out of America, and then England or the UK is where more affluent people, African American people, were sent for college. So it's kind of tracking where all this happens and how it all kind of trickles down to where we are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask a silly question.
Go ahead.
Is Kwanzaa, like, is it multiple days or one day?
Yeah, it is multiple days. I'm trying to remember the exact day it starts. I think it's the 26th. The 26th through the beginning of the new year.
Okay.
And so each day has its own theme. Okay. Community, family, sacrifice.
Okay. I shouldn't have missed that last one. I wouldn't know. Yes. That's okay. Next time.
I should have researched better, right?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna go, but then you changed the time. So
I'm sorry.
I will come. I'm gonna come next time.
Yes. Okay. Well, DeVon, thank you so much for coming. This was such a good
Thank you for having me.
Conversation. Yes, and being our first guest on the podcast. And I think what we talked about today will really help our listeners wherever they work or wherever they're in their life to hear just about what we're doing at Bland and how they can kind of go forth in their life and make changes and maybe start a similar committee at their
or maybe
company,
come to Bland and fit in with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the better. All the better. So again, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Come back again someday.
I don't know what else I'll talk about.
Oh, gosh, plenty.
maybe horses.
Yes.
Maybe horses.
Oh,
that's
encyclopedia.
He's getting his first horse.
Ooh, yes, that is definitely a topic
to be continued.
Yes.
To be continued.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your likes and reviews as we work to build up this podcast. As you heard in our first episode, we are doing a raffle every week, and this week we would like to see you share on Instagram and tag us. Look for our post for this episode and share it to be entered into a drawing for some awesome swag.
I need to create an Instagram now.
You don't have an Instagram?
I don't have an Instagram.
Well, for DeVon and others, you can find us on IG, aka Instagram. I'm so cool.
Or the gram.
Yeah, the gram.
Yes.
At Bland Accounting.
Right. So if you want to know more about Bland, you can visit us at blandcpa.com and check us out on social. You could also rate and review the podcast on whichever app you use to access the podcast. We would truly appreciate it.
Yes, so with that, thank you so much, everyone, for listening or watching us today. We hope that the information we share on this podcast just helps inform, educate, just gives you a little bit more knowledge than you had the day before. So that's really what we're trying to do here. So,
So friends, be informed,
be inspired,
and be awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
A Hurrdat Media Production.